All right, here we go on a Tuesday, beautiful Tuesday as far as I can remember.
It is. It's a beautiful Tuesday. It's February 21st, the year 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 660.
All right, I'll take your word for it.
It is. It's got to be somewhat beautiful up there. It's gorgeous here. It's going to be like 60 today. It was 60 yesterday. The sun's out. Everybody's out walking and running and playing outside. Kids are finally back in school today. Hallelujah! And it's gonna get cold. I think later tomorrow when we get some rain. But it's gonna be somewhat decent up there. I mean, we're not usually that far off. We're usually a bit warmer. Don't get as much snow. But tell me you're getting some sunshine up there today.
It looks a little cloudy. It's sunny, mostly sunny. I'm sorry. I'm doing this in the basement, so I'm not really sure sometimes. We are supposed to get snow tomorrow.
Windows, you're like, it's really gray outside, and you walk out and it's like nothing but sunshine.
Yeah. Well, back in my early days, we used to clog up the windows down. We were like no light because we want to sleep, and so it's not quite that bad. There's a window I can kind of see out, but it's in the 20s. Looks like it's sunny, partly sunny. A lot of snow coming tomorrow, but this weekend looks a little chilly.
Hey, it's wintertime. It's good for you. Back in the day, you would take like the basement windows, you would cover them up with like that film to either make it like to where it like looked a different color outside or inside, but it was always about making the room darker.
Oh yeah,
100% darker.
Well, we had those like old school ones where there's a well, so I forgot how we did that. We might like just put foam out there or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, anything to cut it down. But you brought up a good point there, and I want to bring it up because it is, moving up here from Chattanooga and the train, because I looked and it was like 60-something degrees down there today or whatever yesterday.
Wait, what are you doing that for?
I don't know. It's just on my app,
Look what it's like in Sarasota, Florida today. Perfect blue skies.
I know.
68 degrees.
No, but it's on that.
Why are you doing this to yourself?
You know how you scroll the weather and you find in your city, I have a bunch of cities in there, and that one popped up. I'm like, damn it. And then I started kind of like feeling sorry for myself. And then I realized what a wimp ass excuse that is. I mean, because, yeah, it's colder, but I felt the same there. You know what I mean? Like, I would have the same issues, and that's what was bugging me about myself is that, I'd be like, oh, I got to go work out. It's not 70 or whatever. It's just all relative, and I just think that's such a huge point. I was like, kind of maybe on the topic a little bit. Just like, come on, man, just... Like, it doesn't matter. I got a gym. I got the things I can do. I got indoor training. I can go out and run. It's not that cold, whatever. And I keep catching myself. I was like, well, I did move up north, so it's a little harder here. And it's not. It's the same. It's just all different. It's same but different. It's a mental game you got to beat.
Yeah. If the grass looks greener, it's probably AstroTurf. It's fake. So just hunker down, enjoy where you are. It's always gonna seem better somewhere else, depending on your mentality. But it's very similar to, get done with a run, you just freaking smash it. You're feeling it. You feel awesome. You're energized. Your pace is great. Your heart rate's great. And then you pop up on Strava and like Gustav Eden that you follow is like, hey, I just did 48 miles at a 5:20 pace, and you all of a sudden feel terrible about yourself. It's like, don't do that to yourself. Check it out.
It's true, man. Stay in your own game.
Stay in your own game. Enjoy your own. We'll talk a lot about staying in your own game later today or later in the podcast. But if it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. It sounds really valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of these previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open and honest discussion about what we're going through in life, both as athletes, but as coaches and also humans ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. We work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at their very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to the world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer multiple questions. We'll let you right in. Awesome people, great community, fantastic resource. It is filled with a wide range of experience levels and goals from athletes that anyway, again, from beginners looking at their first 5K all the way up through Ironman champions, Kona qualifiers, and everyone in the middle. It's just a really awesome community that with a lot of people willing to give their feedback and experience and hopefully point you in the right direction in a sport that can oftentimes be very confusing with conflicting information everywhere. Or if it is information, it's got an agenda, it's a sponsor, it's an ad. Everyone has an agenda, but so do we. But ours is to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey. Couple things as we try to do better housekeeping. First and foremost, a big thank you to anyone and everyone that has came on the website and purchased gear. You can do our website, c26triathlon.com. Go to the online store and buy some gear. It's the best way to support the podcast. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads. So the best way to support us is to go there and buy some gear. We'll get that out to you. You might even get a lovely personalized note from Mike himself. Hold on to that, frame it, put it on the fridge. It'll be worth a lot of dollars someday when we retire. And the other way is to go to your favorite podcast platform, iTunes, Spotify, whatever it is, and leave us a solid review. That's the best way to support us. And then the other big thank you is to everyone who has come on to the website and gotten one of our free sprint and Olympic plans. It's something that we're very excited about. It's an interesting timing, something we talked about doing late last year, growing the sport, doing things we can, doing our best to give back and start at kind of the beginning, right, where we started, sprint and Olympic. And a lot of the podcasts we do are always, have been focused on long distance because that's kind of what we both do and a lot of our athletes do. So it's, I think it just makes sense. But we're making an effort to do that. And it's interesting timing because you see USA Triathlon starting to put a really big focus on youth, right? And Splash and Dash series, doing a bunch of these pilot cities and trying to get more youth involved and grow the sport. And you see, people like the Super League Triathlon that just brought the Chicago Triathlon and New York Triathlon. Like it's kind of there's a lot of money going into short course right now, which is the opposite of how it's been the last 3 or 4 years. And I think everyone kind of sees the writing on the wall is that the sport has become like a bucket list sport at age 6 and age 60. People just get into it at 6. They don't see any potential to do races for, long term through middle school, high school, and college. So they stop, they pick up baseball, hockey, soccer, whatever it is. And then same thing with 60. They come in, they do it once, and they're gone. If we want the sport to thrive and to grow and to impact people, we have to be opportunistic at every age. And so, so a big thank you to everyone that's logged on and got one of our sprint and Olympic plans. And I know you've spent a lot of painstaking hours and a lot of sweat and tears over partnering people up with some mentors. Listen, we don't have a lot of drama ever on this podcast, so if I can throw in like a tear, it's usually good. People always complain like, guys don't ever disagree. How is it? I'm like, well, that was about as dramatic as we get. But you put a lot of work into that. I know you're really happy with how it's going.
Yeah, it has been going good. And like you said, everybody signs up and it's on there, but I don't know if everybody realizes it, but we've been assigning our active athletes as mentors to answer questions or along the way within reason. And it is going good. We've got a huge outreach from our athletes and from people signing up for sprints and Olympics. And I think it is a good thing. And like you said, I'm glad you said that because, there's always this push to get kind of youth sports going, it seems like. And then, but like you're saying, later in life, I think it's almost as valuable, if not more, sometimes for people to find something that engages them and gets them out the door and keeps them in shape later in life because, the tendency is just to kind of get lazier and lazier. And it always gets easier to be lazy the less you do. And it gets harder to get back into something. And I think triathlon, of course, worked for me in my late 40s to kind of turn my life around. And, it's like, it's not easy. I mean, we have 24 hours in the day and it's so easy to bitch about 1 hour of doing something that is good for you. That's hard, or maybe 2 hours a day at the max, whatever. But we sit around and kind of like, oh man, I don't want to do that. But that's like the best thing for you. It's almost like this, how do you get over that hurdle? And then you find stuff, and then the more you do it and the more you get in the groove, the easier it gets. And then you just feel better. But it's so weird for me because, like I said, I remember it's almost hard to remember. It's like, thinking back to when I just met you or whatever, about how we felt on the daily, right? It's kind of weird to remember stuff like that. I mean, we were training a lot, and it was definitely something that turned my life around, but we were, still a little nefarious in our nightly activities. And
to put it lightly.
But like, I knew, but before I met you, that was when the real situation is that I wasn't doing shit. And, I was just, heading up to Village Pub every night after a job I hated. And then I would go home and stress the next day and go through the whole thing and kind of go into this weird cycle. But, then triathlon kind of put a spark in my life, and it helped me look forward to something. And then you start feeling better, even though there's pain involved with it sometimes. But it's almost like that thing I've said before, where sometimes you just want to go out and feel pain just to be alive. It kind of wakes you up and reminds you. But then, we're now 10 years after that and, it's just, I'm so glad I did. It's almost like, you talk about investing a lot. It's almost like, I should start putting money into the, investing or savings. And then you don't do it for 10 years. And then you're like, shit, I should have done it. But like, and you don't feel any different, but maybe just more secure or whatever. But that's the feeling for me, is that I don't necessarily know if it, like, I think it's all relative, because I think you feel better, but maybe you don't recognize how much better you feel. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just glad it happened. Right. I'm glad I stuck with it, I guess, is the whole point, because it does take time. But I mean, you get in better shape, and then you feel better incrementally, but there's always shit to deal with, and you always have struggles with it. But it's really great when you can go, to a class reunion and everybody's just sitting around and you're the only one out there kind of doing wakeboarding or whatever.
Do something, find something that you love, and then commit to it. I mean, honestly, I think that is one of the biggest obstacles that the sport has, and it kind of goes into the topic of today, which is, patience. And I think that is one of the more difficult parts of the sport, and the difficult decisions people have in terms of, planning out their longevity in the sport and staying around for a long period of time, is that it's so focused on, and popularized by the longer distance. You got the Kona on NBC, and you got, Super League's been great because it's short course, but it's televised, but it's really short. But these are like super high level athletes. So getting the average Joe into the sport has been hard because it takes time to do it right. And we talk about this a lot, and I mentioned even frequently with athletes that get really, really impatient or have come from a self-coach background or even other types of coaching in the past, is that, you can go all in and you can crush yourself in a year and probably get one pretty good result. But then doing that repeatedly over and over and over again is kind of like banging your head against the wall. At some point, it's going to knock you out, and it's going to knock you out of the sport. And you're going to get so burnt out from two things. One, from driving yourself into the ground from a health standpoint, right? Physically, and then by not seeing improvements because you're grinding yourself into the ground physically, you're going to start to see no improvements or degrading performances and getting slower because your body's in terrible shape. So then that burns you out emotionally and mentally. And then you get to the point to where none of those are firing, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, none of those are firing. Also, none of them is keeping you in the game, right? We all go through spans where physically we feel great, but mentally, emotionally, we're kind of struggling, but at least we feel good, so we're more likely to do something. Or we're tired, we get a lot of sleep, we're kind of in, just kind of feeling blasé about life, seasonal depression, anxiety, whatever it is, or just a rough patch, that you're having in life. But you've got, you got other parts, mentally, emotionally, they're like, yeah, but we can get up and do this. I'm energized. You can make yourself do stuff. But when you knock out all three, that's when you say goodbye. And that's what happens on our sport, because society in general has become so focused on the now and this minute and doing it, whether it's not about doing it right really, or doing it your best. It's just checking a box. And all we do is obsessed about, what other people are doing or how I can do it faster. And we forget that, the most successful athletes, all the most successful athletes, it takes years and years and years and years and years to get better and to do it the right way. And the beauty of that is that the longer it takes, the longer your journey is. And anyone that's been in this sport for, a long enough time will tell you the best part of it is the journey. So what you have is you have people now that want to shortcut the race prep and then also shorten their journey. And you wonder why they don't get anything out of it, right? And so we talked to, before we went live today about, a topic and what we see a lot this time of year is, and again, I see this with athletes that I start coaching from different methodologies and focuses, but, I also see, athletes that have been working with for years and years, and around this time, right? As December comes, January, February, everybody's kind of focusing in, everybody understands the long processes. Everybody has an attention span that's different from each other. Some people can go long forever, right? They can see the long game. They're in the long game. Other people, they'll commit to it, but then after about 4 to 6 to 7 weeks, book squirrel, they're gone, right? They want something different. They want something new. They can't stay focused. They want to pick this up. They want to drop this. I want to cut out all my rides this week, and I want to start doing CrossFit. I've been loving running, but I think I'm going to scrap that, and I think I'm going to do Spartan races. None of it's bad, but if you want to get better, you got to stay focused. And the attention, I've been in this sport for 20 years. I've been coaching for 10. I've never been through a period the last year or two that I've ever seen where, and I think it's just going to get worse with athletes' attention span getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And I don't think it's so much the attention span. I think it's just the fact that now we have so many opportunities to be distracted, right? That we allow ourselves, just like our phones, right? Like, you could be dialed in, but as soon as you go to your phone to, text me, about what time are we doing the podcast today, or can we be 5 minutes late? But you pick up your phone and you see 4 or 5 things on it, and you forget what you're doing, and you text other people. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, your brain goes, oh, well, I'm going to look that up. Then all of a sudden, 20 minutes later, you're like, what was I doing again? Right. So we all have these in our lives, right? Whether it's TV or social media or your, things on your phone. And now we have, all these apps that have ways to compare and contrast against other people, and also to see what other people are doing. And you've got the rabbit hole of death, which is every race specific Facebook group, right? And you go there and you think, and we're in February and you sign up for Ironman Wisconsin, you got the Ironman Wisconsin 2023, race group. And you see these people doing these just asinine workouts, and you can feel amazing. I'm on the right track. I'm progressing. I feel really good. But then all you see is one person, total stranger, right? That you don't even know, who's probably not being totally honest. They just did an 80-mile bike and a 10-mile run in February. I feel behind. But you hear coaches hear this all the time. I feel behind. Why? Well, I saw somebody else. So you're telling me you saw a stranger's post on Strava or Facebook or whatever it is. You don't know them from Adam, and they could have driven themselves in the ground for a month, but you saw one stranger post one thing, and all of a sudden you feel behind. And it's a combination of lack of confidence and attention span. And the athletes that do the best focus on remembering what's important for them, but also have their eye on the prize, which is the long game. They understand the process that they're in. They understand the benefits of doing what they're doing. And then you have all these things like, Zwift and Trainer Road and Full Gas and Rivet, like all these opportunities to go out and get totally caught up in someone else's journey or racing or smashing yourself or trying to set this and trying to set that. It's like a field day of landmines, of opportunities to get distracted and to overcook yourself. And that is why you see so many athletes that don't improve. They might improve in their gamification of what they do on a Tuesday, right? And their 20-minute threshold, then they've been up 20 watts in the past year. But when it comes to what they can do for 4 hours, what they can do for 3 hours, and run off the bike and do these things and feel good and not be destroyed, not about how much you vomit or how much you puke or I fell over. Like your shelf life is like an avocado at Aldi. Okay, that's your shelf life. You're gonna drive to Aldi, right, the grocery store. You're gonna get their produce is majorly suspect. You're gonna go pick up your avocado. By the time you get home, you know what it is? Rotten.
Smushed.
Okay, smushed. Right. It's amazing. Seriously, you can go to Aldi, grab an avocado or banana, and it looks pristine. You drive 20 minutes home, and all of a sudden you're like, what the hell happened? It's sour. It's bad. But that's what happens to people who constantly change things up and are more worried about their own attention span and being entertained than actually racing really, really, really well. And it's a hard thing to come by, especially right now where most people are stuck inside or choose to be inside. That's what their options are, right? Is to get on something that's gamified or entertainment or virtual. And then every time you hop in, you're going to find somebody to chase or to race or to beat your last lap. And it's just, it's great for the software, right? Because it's getting you to do it. And it's keeping you engaged, and it's tempting you with points or PRs or faster laps or other people. That's its job, right? Is to create revenue and get you back on from a user standpoint. But is it best for you? A lot of the times, no. And that's a delicate balance you have to have as a coach, from keeping someone entertained so they keep doing the sessions, but also making sure they're doing the right kind of sessions and not running themselves in the ground 24/7 and then wonder what happens when they don't want to work out for a month.
You know, I'm really glad you said that part about, you can really put your nose to the grind and really dial it in and get, have one good race in 1 year, but it's like that time span kind of expires or something like that. You can kind of put, it's sort of like you can almost do anything if you just put your mind to it. And then you kind of fall back into a funk, and that's one of the things I always talk about, because we, most of our athletes, I wouldn't say I'd say probably most of them have a streak where they're really struggling, or maybe have a week where they just can't get it going, or something comes up or whatever. And then it's sort of like this makeup mentality that kind of creeps in, but you really have to just be patient with it, and it's almost like, you got to know when too much is too much. You got to be able to stop. We get kind of caught up on like this sort of greedy mentality, or like just more training always and want to do more. But, when you push, you just really got to be aware of sort of like what the force is that's pushing you. And eventually you're going to lose it. It's like it's like rolling by adrenaline versus like sincere energy that you've created, and, with recoveries and just taking it easier on yourself. So I think it's just so important to know when enough is enough, when you get behind, and just the idea of being able to suck it up. And a lot of people do that every year. Like, I'm kind of an example of that, where I'll be like, well, I'm just going to jam it home run. I'm just going to go for it. And then you just sort of squeeze about 5 months into 4 months or 3 months, and you get it done. But like you're saying, that's not necessarily the best approach to A, racing well consistently, B, long-term health and performance, and, C, just being a smart person. It's like it kind of, and when you're talking about like the distractions that are out there and how so many of us kind of get, like, I'm going to change this up. I'm going to start doing it. I think you just really got to figure out what's going on in your head first, because it just becomes something new, right? And that was part of what I went through too, when I was talking about, I haven't ever run in my life. I'm going to start running at 49. And I got, that was it, man. That was like the spark I needed, right? And then it was like, shit, that got old pretty quick. And then I found triathlon and started riding again and getting in the pool. And it was all new and stuff like that. But I think my head was using it as a crutch or something. You know what I'm saying here? Like, it's kind of like looking for that next piece of excitement more than really thinking about the long term and really understanding why you want to do this. Is it just because you want to sort of prove to yourself or somebody else that you can do it? Or is it because you really want to become healthier and live longer and be a happier person? That's when you kind of, if you're coming from that place, then I think you make better decisions. Because it's so easy to go overboard in the sport and not really step back and look at things from a big picture and understand what's going on. We just get caught up in the moment, and every day is a moment. And I think we have to look at the big puzzle and just put these pieces together and make them fit without jamming them in there all the time.
You know, it's funny because when people think about risk, they think you got to be really confident to take a risk. I think it's almost the total opposite. When people are scared or lose focus or don't feel good about themselves or are very unsure of where they're going or their attention span is waning, that's when they take risks, right? They throw everything out the window and just take a shot. And it's not because they're confident, it's because they're lacking confidence, right? In where they are and their ability to keep going on to the destination that they signed up for. So you do erratic shit. You'll run 20 miles when you're supposed to run 6, right? You'll head to a black diamond mountain bike trail when you're used to riding, a Zwift 5 days a week, year round. You'll, do these really, I think I want to get stronger, so I'm going to go do this bodybuilding competition this weekend. That's legit the stuff that we hear about. And it has nothing to do with being confident. It's about fear, because it's about, I'm fearful of where I might go if I keep this going, because then I might actually be really good at it. And that will bring on a whole different level of expectations that I'm going to put on myself. And B, I don't have the confidence in myself that I can keep doing this. I'm scared I'm gonna fail. So you know what I'll do? I'm not gonna fail, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put myself in a position that's gonna lead to a higher likelihood of failure. I'll go harder than I'm supposed to on this run. I'll go longer. I'll, decide to do, 18 power cleans at 400, my first day back in the gym. None of that's confidence. And none of it's, and yes, it's being irresponsible, but all of it is a risk that's solely based on lack of confidence and anxiety. It's not confidence, right? And you see so many triathletes lose focus and get distracted and want more entertainment because really it boils down to not being able to understand and be confident on why they're making the decision that you're, just like you said, always ask yourself, why do I really feel the need to do this? And where is it coming from? And is it going to benefit me? And most oftentimes, the worst decisions every triathlete makes doesn't come out of I'm just an endurance junkie, and this is kind of what I do. Most of the time, it comes down to fear. I'm going to do something to kind of self-sabotage myself in a way that doesn't look like self-sabotage, right? Same thing goes with how people's relationship with food. They go way off the reservation, right? And then they keep doing it because they keep feeling bad. We've gotten, unfortunately, obsessed with feeling subpar in our society.
Yep.
That feeling like shit or feeling fine or I'm okay is just kind of the status quo now. And so I genuinely believe, not just believe, but see as a coach, athletes who willfully make choices each and every day to impede their own progress, right? And yeah, a lot of things go into, how we feel on a day-to-day basis, sleep, and I mean, I'll use alcohol as an example. I had this conversation with an athlete earlier, and obviously I have a very, very, very different relationship with alcohol than, 98% of the people who listen to this podcast. I'm alcoholic, I've been drinking, over 9 years. Very different relationship. Having said that, I just had an athlete this morning that was like, hey, I've been like, this is the best training I've ever done. Like, I feel incredible. I'm doing these extra things. I gave up drinking. I've had all these, positive things. I'm sleeping better. I'm performing better. And I responded and I just said, listen, so I obviously come from, a different place from alcohol, but I'll tell you this as a coaching, as a coach, that's, and trying to be as, objective as possible, is I've never had an athlete or met a person that said giving up alcohol or not drinking had a negative impact on their life. Because there's a billion research papers out there about the negative effects that alcohol has on endurance and sleep and recovery. So no, I'm not shocked, right? But and again, like there's like if you can drink normally, then have at it and do your thing. I can't. But I will say I've never had a person say, yeah, I gave up drinking for a month and all these really bad things started happening to me. I started feeling worse. I wasn't sleeping good. My workouts are terrible. I'm like, no, it doesn't happen. Right. The same thing goes with food, right? And sleep and relationships and all these things. Like, we have choices to make. And yes, there's always going to be a baseline level of stress in our life that's cumulative from training that we do, sleep, human interaction, right? Professionally, personally, as a parent, and just life's responsibilities, paying the bills, doing this, doing that, checking on this, something goes broke in the house. Like, you're always going to have that. But what we do is we willfully, and we talked about this a little bit last week, is we willfully invite things into our lives and into our training that inhibit performance. And then you wonder why you don't progress. And then what happens is your inability to be objective and frankly just honest with why you aren't improving. Then that's when you want to shake things up, right? Because you want to prove to yourself that it's got to be something different. Well, it's definitely not you, right? It can't be you. We hate taking ownership, humans in general. We like to blame other people. We like to blame, whoever's president or whatever's going on in the world, or this news or media or a teacher or a coach or a neighbor. We're all about the blame game, right? Ownership has become something that's like hard to come by these days. Just owning up to, yeah, I just made a mistake. I fucked up, or yeah, you know what? I just haven't been putting the work. All right, well, that's a fact, but let's move on. But what happens is instead is people feel behind, right? Or feel like they're not getting faster, and oftentimes these are very, very difficult conversations to have, right? With athletes, because it's a delicate balance, because you generally care about the people, but if you care, then you have to have tough conversations. I had a conversation with an athlete a few weeks ago that was, it was getting really, really, down on themselves about, their performance or lack thereof of being consistent or what they thought was consistent. And then I figured out what's going on with their life. And then they've also put on like 30 pounds and they're eating like trash. And I'm like, listen, man, like, I'll just be honest with you. You can't overcome that in training. You can't overcome that much added weight. You can't overcome that much stress, and you can't overcome treating your body like a carnival ride. You just can't. But no one wants to hear that, right? They want to blame a different level or version of intensity, or I need to do things harder. I need to go longer and slower. Like, we always need to start with ourselves first, because we should be our biggest supporter, right? We should be getting to bed on time. We should be feeling our bodies right. We should be kind to other people. We should listen. We should be vulnerable. We should always look for the bright side and the positive things. We shouldn't complain. We should challenge ourselves daily. We should be our biggest supporters. But what happens sometimes is we're our biggest enemies. We flat out get in our own way every day. And then what do? We blame everything else around us, period. And that is infiltrated itself into everything, every aspect of life, right? You always want to blame someone else, or blame this, or not take ownership. And the best thing you can do with your own training is to understand when you are leaning that direction, right? Yeah, I'm just not. There's different when you say, because people say it's like, I'm just not feeling this. Or what are you not feeling? Well, I think I want something different. Big difference. Want and need. Right? If 2 Tylenol is going to get the job done, why are you taking 4? Right? This happens all the time. If 2 pieces of pizza is going to be just you need, why are you eating 6? Right? If one cookie is just enough to kind of quench your appetite, why are you putting 7 on your plate? Right? If you need more sleep, that, and it'll make you feel better, why are you staying up till 12:30 at night watching cat videos on YouTube, right? If you know that stress has a huge impact on your life and it makes you feel bad, then why are you still in the group chat you're in with your friends that all they do is talk shit about people? Mm-hmm. It's everywhere with everyone. And then what happens is the things that athletes think they can take control of, right? Because one of the reasons we grew so much in 2020 as a team is because people wanted to find something they could control, is that they use triathlon in a very, it can be used in an insanely positive way, but also in a negative way, like you talked about earlier, to almost hurt yourself, right? To break yourself on purpose because you feel like you deserve it. You feel like you're not getting anywhere. I just want to kind of go off the reservation. And that's when bad things happen. But it's so difficult. Again, I'm not saying that as in I know how to do it because I'm perfect. I'm telling you that because I know for a fact as from personal experience, right? These are very hard things in conversations I have with myself all the time, right? And it's they're bad habits to break, but they have to be broken, right? And because the best athletes that we work with, not from a speed standpoint, but from a standpoint of getting the most out of themselves, are the ones that stay the course, minimize outside distraction and stress, right, as best they can, and don't get bored with what other people call boring because they see it as successful. Because you see these two ends of the spectrum. Being super chatty today, my bad. Is you see these two ends of the spectrum that the worse someone's life is, higher stress, right? Work is terrible. Their marriage is terrible. Their kids are, having a rough time. They're shoveling down, McDonald's every night. They're not the ones that want to ride easy. They're the ones obsessed with riding harder and longer. Not because it's a benefit, but because they feel they need that to deal with the stress that, yes, baseline stress we all have, but that they're compounding in life. And then what they choose to do is compound it in training, which they should be doing the opposite, right? Training to relieve, like you always say on the very first podcast, Mike Riley, training should give you energy, not take it away. And you just keep digging a hole and digging a hole and digging a hole. And then at some point you hit the rock, right? The limestone where you can't go any farther. In order to get out of it, you do something irresponsible and crazy. And then you wonder why you get up and you get right back down again. And it's a vicious cycle, but so many athletes do that. And that is the biggest obstacle to success in triathlon.
Yeah, man, when you get to that point, when you're doing that, when you're digging a hole, it's like it always comes with kind of a confusion around your life or what you're thinking about. And the thing is when you can't hear yourself think, that's probably a good time to slow down. And those situations where it's just like, I got to get away from this. I gotta pour more into something and just kill myself or grind it in or whatever. I want to talk about like expectations. And that's where I get in trouble because, one of my things has always been, as I get older, I want to feel younger. And I think that's a hell of a goal, and whatever that takes, right? But the muddy water in that is that I start thinking about who I was and what I used to be able to do. And while I always think that I can still do that because I always get tastes of it. I think you do too. You get, I still got it. I got to prove that I still got it. And that's okay. It's just that like this whole podcast is talking about, you got to be smart with it, and you can't, I think, like for me to go into Wisconsin last year and think that I was going to shatter my record was probably irresponsible because I didn't start training until late. I hadn't had a really good run. We did the move and there was a lot of shit in there. And it has a way of sort of sucking the life out of you because you kind of have this, weird fantasy in the back of your head that you still can go out and do it. And I think that's a fine line because I definitely like the confidence aspect of that, but to not, to be reasonable about it, I guess, is the way to approach it. And so it doesn't beat you down. So you can just kind of be still on the same train, right? Because it's not what I talk about race day is not the end. It's like, it's just part of the journey. So to really use that as like the judgment day of how fit and great you are is really kind of silly if you're still going to do it, So I like what you're talking about, the alcohol relationship or just any kind of like impulses or addictive personalities and how important it is to like, I always heard if you got like, whatever it is, a sugar, alcohol, whatever, any kind of thing. If you just really be mindful as you approach it, like as in, if you're like, I got to go eat some sugar and you don't even think about it like me and you go up into these cookie jars and just start pulling it out and just wailing it down, like that should always signify some kind of a thing, an issue. And like, I've always heard that if you just kind of like maybe just look at the cookie and think about it for a minute and really decide if you really need that. Is this the right move? And you kind of give it a little time instead of mindlessly kind of plowing down things or whatever it may be, because that's sort of how it goes, right? You just kind of get one and you get another one and you just kind of do it. And then finally you're like, oh, wait a minute, that was dumb. And it's crazy how that can only be maybe like 10 minutes later. And so I don't know. It's just like I get into these. I just think it's all applies, I guess, analogy wise to training. Sometimes it's like, do I need to go this, further, or do I need to go this much harder right now? And just be mindful of where you are and where you are in the process. Those are all important things. I don't know. Just to be in the exact moment is so difficult sometimes. It's almost like being in the. It's like, this can happen to us all the time. You might be in the pool halfway through your set and already start being, you're already thinking about Wendy's or something. Mm-hmm. And that kind of shit happens to me all the time. But it's all about, that's why I'm so big with when I swim, I have that mantra. And I lose it a lot. And that's when I start thinking about stupid shit. But when I'm in that mantra and in that groove, I'm in the moment and everything just flows. It's just so much easier. I feel like I'm doing the right thing. But if my mind is somewhere else, that's either a sign that you better, maybe do something else or take a break or whatever, because sometimes in training we get to spots where we're like, man, I just can't be in this situation right now. And that's when you need to take a little break or just step away for a minute and think about it and go back later, because the deeper that hole you dig, the tougher it is to get out. And I think it compounds with so many people.
I mean, you nailed it when you talked about moderation, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't see a lot of advertising on moderation, right? If you think about like all the things that have like the most negative impact on you on a day-to-day basis, it's, what you decide to put in your body, or or what you surround yourself with, or the way in which, and the things that you consume, right? Is checking the news a little bit fine? I mean, that's debatable, but sure. Taking a glimpse of the day's news and events is fine. You do need to get I've got an athlete that off. Yeah, I mean, I've got an athlete that lives that that huge bomb, that huge cyclone that came out and wiped out areas close to Australia and New Zealand. That happened while you're run camping. I just don't check out in the news. And he I checked in his training peaks when I got back, and he was like, yeah, we got no power. People lost their houses. I'm like, damn, I had no idea because I don't check the news. So is it okay to stay up to date, in the events? Sure. Moderation, right? Is it good for you to mindlessly, obsessively scroll through MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN? No. Right? Is it okay to have a cookie or two? 100%. Is it okay to have a box? No. Right? Same thing. Alcohol. Is it okay to have a drink or two? 100%. Occasionally, get your groove on, right, and lower your inhibitions, whatever. Is it probably okay to have a whole bottle of vodka or 6 drinks and you wake up and your head's smashed in and you feel like shit? Probably not good for you, right? But moderation is impossible to sell, mm-hmm. right? Because seriously, think about every advertisement we see, and this also goes for training, right? And the things that are out there. It's to make you faster in 2 days, right? Or to crush yourself here. It's like in the moment you might feel good about yourself, but it's about what's going to happen cumulatively to your body and to your fitness and to your physiology and to your progression. That should matter. But we don't want to think about that. What feels good right now? Or what feels good is the pain right now, but I could care less what happens tomorrow. And then you can't run for 4 days, right? Or you're so smashed, on the bike that your next 4 workouts are basically useless because all you're doing is trying to recover. That's what people do. We have become so lax and disinterested with sustainable anything, moderate anything, slow progression anything, because it's not sexy and it's not advertised. We'll do a Facebook marketing piece at some point. We'll do 2 years to your fastest, best version of yourself triathlon. see how many hits we get, right? We get like 3. Then maybe from, my mom, your mom, and, one of our, other coaches. But if we put out there 2 weeks to your fastest Olympic triathlon, we get like 1,000 hits.
Yeah.
Like that's the society and the culture that we've created. But when you go back and you look, and you seriously, you can talk to any, not just us, any high level professional coach and listen to them talk, and they will tell you that 80 to 90% of their training for their athletes is boring. Endurance sports training is boring. It should be easy, monotonous, not a lot of flash, not a lot of bang. What happens is people want to go bang, bang all the time, and then they got nothing, right? Their bangs become smaller and smaller. And they start off with a grenade, and they end up with a little whippersnapper, one of those little things you throw on the ground on 4th of July. That's what happens because you use it all. It's just so hard, especially, right, when you coach athletes that want to go long, right? They're obsessed with what they can do for 5 minutes for some reason. I have no idea why. So obsessed. Instead of saying like, dude, my 20-minute power is insane right now. What you want to say is, God, my heart rate's lower, my watts are higher for 3 hours. I feel so efficient. That doesn't really sound sexy. I want to be powerful and fast for 3 minutes, and look how much I'm increasing this. Yeah. And I won this, 278-yard Swift race yesterday. Man, I feel good. And you're like, well, yeah, but in your race, like 112 miles. Yeah, but I'm like, it's like, it's such a fine line again. And one of the most complicated parts of coaching is massaging the relationship athletes have with needing to be entertained. It's always a question I ask an athlete when they ask, maybe can we do this? Maybe I'm like, is a difference, huge difference in wanting and needing something. Do you really need that, or do you just want to do it? 2 totally different things. Needing it means it'll benefit you. Needing means it's going to have a positive impact going forward, not for the day, but for a period of time, right? Or I just want to do it. Okay. Just so you understand, that's fine. If you want to do it, go for it. But here are the possibilities after the fact that are likely going to impact the next period of training. And again, as a coach, you have to massage the personality, right? The psychology of the relationship of what's going to keep them engaged and why are they doing it? Are they really going to hurt themselves, or is this more of a mental and emotional play, right? To keep themselves engaged or to push themselves mentally and emotionally. We'll have to deal with the physical aftermath afterwards and extended recovery. And then, when they want to jump back into it, it's again, coaching is 90% from the chin up. The rest is the training stuff is the absolute easiest piece. It is the person that is the most difficult, right? Mm-hmm. But it's so hard to convince athletes. But thankfully, if you get them to buy in long enough, like we kind of restructured and reprogrammed a lot of things with the training that we do, and athletes are seeing tremendous benefit from it in so many ways across all 3 sports. So that's why we did it like January, because everybody's excited and will stay for at least a short period of time. But if you can get them to buy in for 4 to 6 weeks, then they'll start immediately seeing the benefits. And then it's easier to sell long term, right? That, okay, I saw it works. But if you try to change things up every 2 seconds, there is no buy-in process. It's a gamble, right? It's not an investment. It's a gamble, right? You can try to time the market, and then I can't remember your name, but big thank you to the big investor guy that sent us like the spreadsheet of like the last like 10 years and trying to time the market, or just, dollar cost averaging your way in and just putting in, $1,000 a month, and how much you would have. That's not nearly as sexy as, right, trying to read the stock market and taking a gamble. Even if you lose, you got the rush of the gamble and the risk, right? Don't gamble with your training. Don't gamble with your, preparation for your race. Don't gamble with the period of time that you've been given to participate in endurance sports. Invest in it. Be patient with it, and then don't withdraw, right? Oh, I've got these gains. I've invested, $5,000 in this company, and it's quadrupled. All right, let me take that out, and you know what? I think I found the next one. I'm going to take all that money out. I'm going to invest it in, RoboTry. And you go and invest in RoboTry, and guess what happened? 4 weeks later, your money's gone. That's what happens. Yeah, into RoboTry. Don't
that's
invest
got
in
me
RoboTry.
intrigued, man. It's got me intrigued.
It's like Tricalc's brother.
Yeah.
But that's what happens is you get so disinterested with boring success, right? The best sentence I can give you. Most triathletes get distracted and disinterested in boring, massive success that they jump to the gamble of failure because it's more exciting. But the end result is far more disappointing.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give everybody the secret to being good in this sport. That's just to do it a lot. I mean, that's how you get good at anything, is just to do it a lot. And, you got to be healthy to do that and keep it going. But back to I want to say a quick little story about, because your Facebook marketing thing always like fires me up a little bit. Reminds me back. So like people who don't know, I spent about 15 years marketing for news companies or TV stations. And quick story about, the idea of, quick fixes, or like I want it now, or the 2-week Olympic plan, all that kind of salesy sort of stuff. And what marketing does these days, I'm very hyper aware of what's going on out there. And this is 12 years ago now, mind you, right? We know what the news has become and everything, which I never envisioned. Even though back when I was in it, I had this sinking feeling in my gut a lot about what we were doing. And then it just like kind of came to me one day when I was talking to an old boss. I was sitting in his office, and I think I might have told this story about 100 podcasts ago, so I'll tell it again. But I was sitting in his office, and I'm the marketing director, and I wrote the coming up tonight at 10 stuff, and stay tuned after The Bachelor, that kind of thing. And so I was trying to come up with these like formulas, because that shit's not easy sometimes. You got it, because it's all about teasing and twisting words and leaving just enough out to suck people in to watch the news. And I was talking to him about that, and I said, "What do you think of this?" And he goes, "Look, I don't care what you write." And then he looked at me and he said, with air quotes, "As long as it says watch tonight or die." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah,
so true though.
We just got to scare him." I mean, he didn't say it, but then, you realize many years later that the news doesn't, the news's main product is fear usually. And they're selling fear, and fear is very emotional, obviously, and it gets you in. So when you and I first started doing this podcast and started talking about our business and everything, we used kind of one of your mantras, I guess, or not yours, but like what you learned through treatment was, we want to do everything by attraction, not promotion. And that's just not glitzy, man. But that's why we probably have a lot of athletes that stay around a long time. Certain people, that's not for everybody. The slow, smart, methodical wins and gains over the long term. Like you said, I mean, a lot of people want the quick fix. But that's just how we are. I mean, I always get people saying, "You guys should do this and market this and do these." And I'm like, nah, that's not really our style, because we're really, honestly, we don't like it. And it's going on everywhere. And if that, puts us in a back seat as far as, being the next billionaire, then so be it. Because every damn video on YouTube is how to be a billionaire now. And it just drives me crazy. Because, it's like, what about the steps? You can't, there's so many people pitching things now that have never even gone through it. It's like life coaches that, you look at them, you're like, really? You haven't even run a business, or you never work out or anything like this. And all of a sudden you just want me to snap my fingers and be positive. That's kind of your motif. That's your angle. So I just want to point that out, because I mean, a lot of times, this podcast, we don't get into that 10 ways to be faster kind of crap all the time, because it's just about doing things a lot and doing them over and over and keeping a positive approach to it. And finding, like I said, you got to figure it out in your head. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it to impress other people? Are you doing it to be a better person? And that's what I always have to remind myself of too, because it's so tempting. Like you said, every time you turn on social media, there's somebody else out there that's like, man, I can do that, or I want to show that. And then you just forget about your whole mission. So stay the course.
Stay the course. Boring is good. I mean, in all honesty, I mean, seriously, and again, it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone, which is totally fine. And it's one of like the biggest conversations I have to have with, incoming athletes is, they might be working with a different coach, and then I'll ask, what was the, why are you leaving? Why, whatever. Like, well, I just don't think they're very creative. And I'm like, well, if you're looking for Bob Ross, you're barking up the wrong tree, because that ain't me. I'm not, my job isn't to entertain you or to keep your sessions dramatically different, so you're having to think on your toes every week on how to actually do them. My job is to give you sessions that you can do correctly. And then once you do them correctly, do them even more correctly the next time, maybe for a little bit longer, right? Endurance training is overwhelmingly should be boring, right? But that is, it's hard for people to wrap their brain around with as much as, again, I think we've been trained to for whatever reason, attracted to, it's kind of like the news, right? It's like people are so obsessed with knowing all the misinformation that they don't even know what is the information. They don't want to be not informed of the stuff that's not even information. That's where we are in life. And it's just, it's a sad cycle, yet that, it can break. It's like I tell people all the time, like, why are you looking at that? Like them shaking their head. It's depressing or sad. I'm like, why? Why? You just gave away 5 minutes of your life. You just gave it away to that. That's what you gave it away to. And and we do it all the time, but that's why the most successful athletes on the planet have done it for a long time. And then they don't sway. They don't deviate. They know what gets the job done, and that's all they care about. So if you want to get the job done, you want to be at your best, then stay the course. Be patient. Do it right. If you don't want to be your best, you just want to be moderately okay, but entertained along the way, and then wonder why you're not progressing, then check yourself when you complain about your progress. Because it's on you. 100%. It's on you.
Yeah.
So choose the path, right? And choose to be either entertained greatly along the way or insanely proud and accomplished when you finish with a time you never thought you could have. Decide that now and then choose your path. But you can't go back and forth. It's a long year and hopefully a long triathlon journey for all of you. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed today. Took some golden nuggets from today's podcast and we'll apply it to your own life. As always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com, and there's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're interested in coaching for the year, click on our coaches tab and find the one that you feel is right for you. If you need anything from Mike, he's available, crushingiron@gmail.com. And if you need anything from me specifically, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, buddy. Simplicity is rarely simple.
It is right. Ain't that a fact?
All right, man. I appreciate it. I'll catch up with you soon, man.
See you Thursday.
All right. Bye.